So, has anyone ever populated a table view before? No? Where do you get the methods to populate a table view, Allison? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So those are data source methods. Sounds great. Olympia and Aram here. Have you met Olympia and Aram? It's a very sarcastic Friday. Are going to set that all up for you. They're going to pair program. They're going to do it in the very specific way that we can actually practice pair programming. Pair programming is not programming with a friend. It is a very specific practice that's part of something that I want you all to get used to called extreme programming. Unfortunately, extreme is spelled EX, not just extreme. It's not as cool as it sounds. But it's a certain type of practice that's common in the industry that helps promote productivity in some ways. In other ways, it doesn't. But it's a good way to work with someone and learn from someone. So they are going to set up the table view in that demo project by pairing. One person will be the navigator Iran will be the navigator.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's me.
And I'll be the driver.
Olympia will be the driver. And they will switch off every 5 minutes. And afterwards, I'd like you all to tell me what behaviors you noticed each role was doing. So starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, get started.
All right. So the first thing we want to do is go to the storyboard and set up our UI. So let's go ahead and delete the default view controller. And let's also delete the default view controller file. Move to trash, or yeah, that too. And yeah, in our storyboard, let's drag in a brand new view controller.
What?
We're going to drag in a brand new view controller.
Whoa.
Sorry, guys. All right, great. So what do we need in this view controller? We're going to need a table view to display our data. So let's go ahead and drag in a table view. Okay, so we just want to do some basic auto layout. So we're just going to pin the table view to all of its edges in the super view. Perfect. So now that we set up our view controller in the interface builder, we need a file that is going to correspond to this view controller.
Oops.
So let's make a new file, Cocoa Touch. And it's going to subclass of UI view controller. And we could give it a descriptive name like relative to what we're doing. So we can call it shopping list view controller. Great. So the first thing I'd like to do is drag in the outlet from our storyboard into this new file.
But first, what do we do?
Yes, yeah. So before we can do that, we actually have to make this view controller a subclass of the view controller we made. And so we just go ahead into the identity inspector and then set its subclass. Not a subclass, it's actual class. And then we'll be able to drag in our table view. So we can call it shopping list table view. Great. So now that we have our table view all hooked up to our view controller class, we have to set up its data source. So the first thing we want to do is get the data source, meaning we have to actually get an array to represent what is going to be displayed on each row. So if we look into our model class, we see we have a method that returns an array of shopping items. So we're going to implement we're going to make a variable at the top of our class right here, and we're going to call it var shopping list. And it's going to be, right now, it's going to be an empty array of shopping items.
Okay, so
But as an array. Great. So now we have that empty array. We want to
switch.
okay, cool. So now that we have access to our data source via this variable, we are going to conform to the methods that to delegate and data source, so we can get access to the methods that give the table view its functionality. So what I usually like to do is I like to make an extension of the view controller, and I make that extension conform to UI table view delegate and UI table view data source. So before jumping into setting this up, I'm going to go back to my storyboard.
I think I lost it. Wait, how do I go back?
How do we go back to there? We're in the laptop.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, go back up.
Drag the mouse to the right. Wow, it's like the first responders on the other
There.
screen.
There you go.
There you go.
And I'm going to should we make this a custom cell or a prototype cell? Make it a prototype cell, because why not? That's 10.
Whoops.
There. We're gonna add one to it. Right. So now we have a cell, and we are going to give that cell a identifier. Let's call it shopping cell. Cool. So we have a table view and cell has an identifier. Let's give it a style also. Let's just say with subtitle. I like that. Okay, cool. Now we can go back to our storyboard.
You mean view control?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, or view controller, and go find our extension. And because these protocols have these two functions, we have to call them, right? Otherwise we can't move on. So we have to tell our table view how many rows it's going to have and what's going to be on those rows. So the first thing we're going to do is that we are going to return here the count of our item. And now in our cell for rollout, the return type of this function is a table view cell. So we're going to create a cell. We're going to say let cell equal to table view that dq reusable cell and we're going to choose that second one because that comes with an index pass on the identifier we just created and give it an index pass. Yay! Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to say let, I guess, selected items.
Switch.
Okay, great. So we're going to call this variable to be represent what the item is at any given row. So we're going to say let selected item equals the shopping list. It's an array, so we have to access it using the bracket, the subscript, and we're going to say index path.row. So now we have to set up the cell in terms of the labels. So we're going to say cell dot text label dot text is going to be equal to the selected item. We're going to the name property. Great. Next, we're going to do cell dot detail text label. Set its text property equal to the item's price. And then, since we're done setting up the cell, we're just going to return that cell. Great.
That's a double.
Oh, yeah, so that's a double, so it can't be casted as a string directly. So you can just do price.description. That's what I like to do. Just a quick way to get that to work.
Oh, what's that?
That's a property that basically any type, well, not any type, but most types can conform to custom string convertible and be displayed as a string using the description property. Great. So now that we've set up those methods, we actually have to get the data source from our model. So I believe if we look into our model class, or struct, rather, yeah. Shopping item, that's it. We have a method, a static method that gets us the shopping items. So we have to call that in our view controller somewhere. So let's go back to the view controller. Let's implement a private method below view.load. Yeah, right. Yeah. You can do it above it. Yeah. Private func. We could call it get shopping data. And it's not going to return anything. What it's going to do is going to set our array to be the output of that function. So we're going to say self.shoppinglist equals, we're going to call the class, so it's going to be shopping item dot let's go back to the model, see what it's called. Okay, so it's called shopping item fetching client. That's the name of the struct. So we're going to call that. Yeah.
Oh.
No, that's okay. Shopping item fetching client. Yes. Dot. Yes. Get shopping item. So that's our method in that static function. So the next thing we want to do is we want to implement another private method that actually sets up our table views, data source, and delegate. So we could call it private func. Yeah. We can call it configure table view. And in here, we're just going to set our shopping list table view.
Is the what's it called? Shopping list.
We're going to set its data source and delegate to be equal to the view controller or self.
Switch. Switch now.
Okay, so now we are going to call these two methods in our building load. And let's run the app.
Yeah, that's right.
Drag it all the way over to the right. You can move the cursor to the left. There you go. Drag it up. Drag it to the right. There you go. Yeah. What happened?
Seems to be. Oh, okay. So the problem, we're getting a little. Ollie, what's going on?
Failed to initiate the view controller. Perhaps the we don't have a navigation controller.
So where do I
Let's
go?
go to the storyboard and let's embed that view controller. Go up to select your and you can go.
I think we just have to set the
I don't know what these are called, but if we go to the editor menu, no, on top.
This?
Well, you can do that too, but I want for a navigation controller.
Oh, you want? Okay, let's do that.
Yeah. Click on the editor button in the top menu, and then go to embed in navigation controller. And let's run it now.
Oh, look at that.
Wow. What do you think?
Beautiful.
Yay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Next week.
Your
Anytime.
computer is really hot.
Oh, I know. It gets hot every day
Super annoying, right?
because it doesn't have enough RAM to record and code at the same time. Isn't that cool? Okay. You know what they didn't do? They didn't really commit their changes. Ooh.
Fire.
All right. I am going to check the diff. So git diff. What does that do, Sunny? Nice. The important thing, super important, is git diff and git add minus p, which is basically adding in parts. They show you what changed, but only in the files that you already have recorded in Git. So these untracked files, if you've added a file but not committed it and then written a bunch of code in it, Git does not know how to look through that file for all the changes you've made. It just said, well, here's a file with some text in it, because it has no prior knowledge of that file. So in this shopping list view controller, it's just going to say, all right, you have to add the whole file at once. You can't add it in parts. So that's why I get really, really super, oh, all right, I have to switch and be quiet. I have to be quiet for like 15 minutes. That's why I like to add a commit every time I add something new, like just added a table view controller, something like that. It'll help you with your Git history. Let's look at the Git diff though. This is going to show our changes in our files. At the top of the diff, you see what the name of the file is. And so this A and this B just means this is what we saw before, so this is what's being changed. A is the version that you see in red with the little minus signs maybe where things were removed. And B is the thing in green with the little plus sign saying what's been added. And this file specifically just governs the layout of your folders and files in Xcode. So it literally says where are things laid out. So if we look at our Git status again, looks like we added a new file called shopping list view controller. I'm going to add that. But whenever I add a new file, I should also make sure to add the editing table views.xcodeproj/project.pbxproj. Make sure you're adding this thing called project so that it knows the order of your files and it doesn't get lost. You might have seen before that when a project is laid out incorrectly, it will show, if you look in Xcode, it'll show like the symbols for the files is kind of like diminished or like grayed out, and then you can't access those files. It's generally because this project file is not arranged in the order it thinks it should be. So when you add a new file, make sure that you are also adding this project folder. So if I go and I hit git add -p, it shows me something similar to git diff. It says you've added a file called shopping list view controller.swift in sources, which is just generally the source files here. It says you've removed something called view controller.swift. I'm going to hit Y to add this change. And then it says in another part, oh, begin this word section. Okay, looks like you've added that thing and removed that thing again. You don't really have to know how this functions. You just want to make sure your stuff exists. Look, another place where they've removed the view controller and added the shopping list view controller. I'm going to hit Y again. Oh, and another place where that's going on. I'm going to hit Y. Make sure you're reading through the names of those files and making sure that that's the correct thing, that you're adding the file that you thought you added or removing the file you thought you removed. But like we've said in the past, or like I've said maybe once or twice and not enough times, you should strive to have every commit of your code give you a working version of code. You should not have a broken file or a broken project when you make a commit. You shouldn't be committing broken stuff, because then if someone else picks up your code, they're screwed. They don't know what to do. So now I'm going to check my Git status. I see that that project file and the new file, shopping list view controller, are staged for commit. I'm going to make a commit and say adds shopping list view controller. But like I said before, because this file was not being tracked, it now added all of the stuff in here. So it added my outlet, it added these setup private functions, it added the delegate and data source, so I might have made that commit earlier. It also added the outlet here. And so what I also have to do now is make sure that in that commit that I just made, the outlet on the storyboard also exists in that commit. Because otherwise, if I download a commit that has an outlet in my, an outlet in the controller, but not in the storyboard, it's not going to work as expected. It might crash. So I'm going to now look at my storyboarding Git. So I'll check git add -p, and that is in editing table views, base proj. All right. So now I see all this stuff in green. I see some stuff in red. If we start reading through the tags here, I don't really know what this device thing does. I don't really know what this scene thing does. Do you want to come visit? Okay. I see that there's a view controller that's been added and a view controller that's been removed. I see there are, if you look at the indent, there are views inside of our view controller. So this is how a markdown language works, is you put it inside of that thing before its closing tag. So eventually I will see something that looks like triangle tag / view controller, like you've maybe seen with HTML before. Right over, where you at? Over, This is really hard to look at, isn't it? Thanks a lot, guys. You can feel free to look through this stuff on your own when you commit the storyboard, but look for keywords like view controller, view, subviews. Oh, a subview of the main view of my view controller is that table view that I added. That table view has a whole bunch of properties in here. It has something called a rect, which is just saying, where does it exist? How big of a rectangle is it? Every view ultimately is a rectangle on the screen. Even if you change it so that it's circular or oval, the space it takes up is rectangular. Weird, huh? All right, there's a prototype table view cell in there. Oh, look, that's the reuse identifier. So all that stuff is going on. I have to add it all right now because I need to get that table view working, and I'm not able to split out just the table view itself because I could have added the view controller and then the table view. Still love you guys. I've added all those changes. I want to add them to my last commit, which adds shopping list view controller. How can I change my last commit? Eric. Cool. Can you walk me through how to type it? So just like that. Sorry, I can't hear you. Like that. Commit. Like that. Walk me through what you want to do without the command. What do you want to amend? Cool. Cool. So the command for that is git commit amend. And it's going to automatically look at the last commit and say add shopping list view controller. So in that commit, it's going to add what changes are now staged, which is all this storyboard stuff. Damn. All right. Now it brings me to this really fun looking thing.
Can you amend commits before that?
No, you can roll back your commits, but I wouldn't recommend that unless completely necessary. Use git commit amend to change your latest logged message. Use git commit amend to make modifications to the most recent. Use git rebase. Ooh, interesting. Can you amend commits before last commit? How to modify a specified commit. Submit a list of contents for review if I have the commits. I know I can modify head content. What is head? I don't know. You can use git rebase. For example, if you want to modify commit that, run rebase. Should we try that? Let's do it. So I'm going to just get out of here. If you end up in this, what the editor is called VI, if you hit colon, it brings you down to the bottom. If you already see yourself here, you can hit Q to quit out of it. You can definitely learn more about VI or Vim and some other operating systems if you want. I don't want to. Let's look at our git log. So let's say I want to rebase back to the first commit. I'll do git rebase. This interactive brings up more of a view for us to look at. Damn, I just didn't type it right. So I need 2 dashes. Well, it brings us back to VI. These lines can be reordered. Rebase this into that. If you remove a line here, that commit will be lost. Whoa. So I want to rebase. Let's go look back at the names of our commits. Or I should say the IDs. This one starts 1ADE. This one starts EDBC. When I go and look at the rebase interactive, it's saying I'm trying to rebase the commit you specified with the last commit, or what we call head, onto EDBC, so the commit that we specified. It wants us to do some stuff here. Do you want to do some stuff, Liana? Okay. All right. You can scroll through this and it gives you some warnings. These lines can be reordered. They are executed from top to bottom. If you remove a line here, that commit will be lost. However, if you remove everything, the rebase will be aborted. Note that empty commits are commented out. So when you rebase to a prior commit, you will get a list of commits between what is called head, which is your last commit, or the current working space that you're in, and the commit that you're trying to rebase back to. And then you can make some changes that we are not going to make right now. I hope that's okay. Okay, cool. Cool. So, we've got our table view controller. What are we going to do next today? Does anyone have any suggestions? Delete rows? I think we should take a break. That's what we'll do next today. Let's take a 5-minute break. Hey, what's going on?
Okay, so I'm trying to understand how would I. So when we do the unwind segue, it's gonna update everything. However, I'm trying to figure out how would you do that. How would you obtain information from this view controller into the unwind?
So you're unwinding a segue. Segue has a source, which is the view controller you came from, and a destination, which is the view controller that you're in. So in this one, you could do you could say segue.destination as whatever view controller that is, and try to look in those fields.
Segue destination.
Segue.source is that view controller, right? That's the view controller you're going back to.
Well, no, this is in this view controller right now. The main one. So I'm in the main view controller. That's where this is going.
Yeah.
So it'll be the segues for this view controller. Is that what you're saying?
But if you look at the segue, so this is unwinding this specific segue, right? This specific segue works the same way as when you use prepare for reuse. Did you use prepare for reuse? If you remember when we use prepare for reuse, a segue is like actually an object, right? It's a UI storyboard segue. It has a source and it has a destination. that's only working in one direction. So this is the source, that's the destination. When you're unwinding the segue, this still is the source and that's still the destination.
Okay, so how do I make this the destination?
It doesn't matter because you can just refer to it as the source.
Okay.
Like Segway's got the set property source and destination. So when source to destination, when you're unwinding, you're going destination back to source.
Okay. So then how do I update this then when I'm trying to add?
That is the model. That's not in the segue. That's how we'll adjust the model. And there's something called is editing. Or yeah, is editing for a table view. That's what we're gonna do today.
Delete.
Yeah.
So right here.
I did that already.
No.
Do you want to teach it?
No,
No.
absolutely not.
Come on.
I'm not good at it yet.
Come on. Come on.
I still have to wear it once you.
Is editing, so it's right here.
Mm-hmm. So that's just how you are manipulating the view right now. Then you have to hook it up to how it's changing the model. So I don't know where your model is. Like, where's the information? Sure, but where's this information pulled into your controller? Oh, that guy. Cool. So that's what we're going to adjust.
So you're saying wait till we go over the class.
Alright, so I have a good question as well. So, what was the purpose? Okay, so we have created our power function right here. Two questions. Why don't we actually create another variable to assign that to? Why don't we just call the sharpen item and assign it in that function, and then call that function to the globe? Because this is actually creating a whole new variable to store data.
Yep.
That's just being transferred to another variable again. Is there a reason why? Or can I just delete this right here? Can I just delete this right here and just say sharpen items equals that until I go let all items. Right? So, you understand?
Yeah, let me just look this up.
Is there a reason why?
Yes, because this is when we were initially getting it from the model, and we want this to be something we can change. So this is just saying at the beginning, here's what goes in there.
Also, later on, we could then use that to store a different.
We can. This is where we're going to make the changes to our data that's going to appear in the table. So just like yesterday when we were doing filter, we used a variable, a computed property for that filter.
Yeah.
That wasn't the same.
Okay.
That wasn't the same thing as. I'm so interested to know what's going on, Ryan. I'm so interested to know what's going on.
It can be taken.
Oh, all right.
Literally everybody's like
Oh,
16 over here.
yummy. Okay.
All right. So
Yeah, so just like the one we were filtering yesterday, like that's our initial data source, but this one gets edited. And we set up all the data source methods for the table view to change based on that.
got it. And then when you reset back to this one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
You wouldn't reset it because once you've gotten the data, like the edits that you make are what you want to appear.
Oh, I get. So that's the reason why we do this. So whatever we edit, the changes are permanent until you edit again.
In this view controller.
Right.
Edited what's actually the model.
Right. The model stays static. Never changing.
So think of this as just the view controller's version of the model
So
that it makes changes.
It has a copy and it's manipulating its copy.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. That part makes a lot of sense. I think that's where I was making a mistake was whenever I had mine's change. Or I always got everything. Because I hit a point, everything just flips right back. It never stayed static. So I was always okay.
Let's get started. It might be,
Okay.
more easy. Might be more easy. Easier. That's the word I'm trying to say. All right. Hello again, everyone. Has anyone read the name of today's lesson? Does anyone know what it's called, Aaron? Did that not update on Canvas? It definitely was encapsulation the other day, but it should be different today. Yeah, deleting and inserting of cells. Did encapsulation stay there? That would be bad. No. Oh, and there is a lab. Yay, thanks, Ben. There's a lab. Okay, today we are talking about deleting and inserting table view cells. So, what kind of UI element do you think we're going to be working in mostly? We've seen it like, I'd say every day this week. Yeah, we're going to we're going to delete and insert table view cells. What do those go inside of, Marielle? What do table view cells go inside of in your UI? In a table view, that's right. So ultimately, what we're going to do, similar to yesterday, is learn how we can manipulate the data we get from our model based on the view, based on interactions in the view, to update through the controller. Yesterday we did some filtering based on what came in the search bar, what strings we got in the search bar. Today we're going to handle user interaction with the table view itself, so that we can update what's in our table view again. So we want to be able to add, delete, and move around cells in our table view. That's what we're working on today. There's a very, very clear way to do this with MVC. Hooray! So let me get into Xcode. So I want to tell you a little bit about some more stuff that table views can do. A table view, I'll look at it. A table view, we go into the assistant editor, and I just start typing shopping list table view. Of course, make it bigger, bigger. Of course, it's got a bunch of properties and methods, right? So if we look through them, because we're just so curious about everything going on with table views, we could see that an instance of a table view, which is what this shopping list table view is, has a whole bunch of properties. It's got something called a background view, which is a UI view. It's got begin updates, which begins a series of method calls that insert, delete, or select rows and sections of the table view. Whoa. Maybe that'll come in handy later. But let's stick to stuff that might make more sense right now. It's got this bool called isEditing. So built into a table view is the ability for you to edit it. But what part of MVC is a table view? Levi. Cool. So the actual table view is the view part. A UI table view is a view. So all it knows is editing. What we're going to do today is respond to our view editing. I've lost Kimball. I'm sorry. Respond to our view editing in the controller using the information from the model. That's what we did yesterday. That's what we're doing today in a slightly different way. You ready? Okay. So for now, I can just say, when the view loads, that thing is false. This happens by default. This is the initial state of the table view, unless you say otherwise. I don't have to. I'm just doing it so that you can see like where we're at different points in the code. Because later I'm going to make it true. So I want you to just know right now it's false. This is redundant, but at later points we're going to make it true. So I'd like you to see that it is false right now. It would probably be a good practice not to have redundant code, but I'm instructing, not developing something to get paid for. So we can start by just adding a button. How do I get a button? I'm having a rough morning. Can anyone help me out? Eric, how can I get a button? Hell yeah. Come on, button. Come on, button. All right. I'm going to drag this button into the navigation bar. Ooh. Interesting. Navigation bars have a whole bunch of stuff going on. It's a navigation item, which is the whole top bar. There's a left bar button items, which don't exist right now. There are right bar button items, one of which is a bar button item, which is a button. Interesting. We'll probably learn more about that some other time. For now, let's just make this button called Edit. Nima, I want to hook up this button to my view controller. What can I do to do that? Yeah. I'll do that. I will connect it down here. What kind of connection do I want? Agreed. What should we call this? Cool. Let me tell you the purpose of this button. Maybe I should have done that first. This is we're going to press it to say we are editing and we are not editing. So when I press it first, it's going to make that is editing for our table view true. And when I press it another time, it's going to make that is editing false. Cool. Let's go with edit button. I'm going to make sure my type here is UI button. I'm going to connect it. Nice. Come on. All right. So that's connected. I'm getting my storyboard out of the way because I know exactly what the view is now, and I just want to work in the controller and with the data. For right now, let's set up a, let's see if we are editing, and if we are editing, we will change it to not be editing, and if we are not editing, we will change it to be editing. Albert, can you help me out with that? Yeah, cool. So let's say we check the value of is editing, right? Walk me through how to type that out. You tell me. What are we editing? So we're not editing the button. What we want this button to do is set up that our table view is or isn't editing. No. You asked me before why I included something in the view did load. Look at the view did load. Cool. So if shopping list table view dot is editing, which is a bool. So read this aloud. If it is editing. So if the value of that bool is true. What do we want it to do? Let's just stub that out for now. Let's say set it so that it's not editing. Else set it so that it is editing. All right. So any ideas how we can set our shopping list table view to be editing? Tia? Yeah, let's try it out. So if it is editing, set that shopping list table view is editing to false. And the opposite for if it's already false. Neato. Let's run it. See what happens. Have you seen this kind of UI before? If you have an iPhone. So, is editing right now brings up that red button that lets me delete a cell. If I hit delete, well, it tried to do something, but this is just a feature of my UI table view. So this is just my view. And what that means is I haven't changed the underlying data, and I haven't said to update the table view, much like we did yesterday when filtering stuff. I haven't said update the table view based on that data. All this is editing is it's setting up the UI to be in this editing mode. Edit, edit, edit. How can we make that button more intuitive for the user? Because when it's editing or when it's not editing, it says edit. Yeah, so no matter which mode, whether is editing is false or is editing is true, it always says edit. It's not a super helpful message. Hi, Adam. Hildy. What would be a good message for our button here? Maybe when it is editing. So if we're editing right now, it still says edit. How can we make that like more intuitive for the user? What could we say? Yeah, so right now it is editing, but the button still says edit. Adam, go away. So right now, anytime I press it, it says edit, but I'm in editing mode. So if I press it, like I'm kind of expecting it to edit again. So maybe we can change the text there. What do you think the text should be?
Well, that's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We can say, would it be too long to be like edit complete?
I would think of it more like a command. So like right now, you press this to edit. He gave it away, huh? Okay, cool. Where could we set that value? So this button, I'll give you a hint. This button itself is the sender in this function. Okay. Do you want to phone a friend? Hi, it's me, David. That was such a good turn of events. Good job. All right. So I might say for this button, that was really good. So if it is editing and I've tapped it, I want to reset the title to be, so sender, which is a button. I want to say sender.setTitle. I'm going to make that title edit. So if I'm editing, which is right now, when I press it again, that's what we're dealing with in this condition. When I press it right now, and those things go away, I want the title to be edit. And for right now, don't worry about what this .state means. You can just say normal, the normal or default state of a control that is enabled but neither selected nor highlighted. Well, else, So when I am not editing, I am setting the value of isEditing to true, and then I'm setting the title to that done that we just discussed. Sounds great. My head's a little loopy right now, so I don't know if I actually got the logic of this right. Let's test it out. All right, moment of truth. Edit, nice. So when I hit edit, so when isEditing was false, it changed isEditing to true, so these little thingies popped up, and then it set the title for that button to done. Then when I tap it again, so when shopping list.isEditing is true, I set that to false, so it updates the table view's editing state, and the sender's title gets updated to edit, so that button's title. Just want to let you know that you can set the isEditing property. I think something a little more proper would be to say set editing, so call a function here rather than editing a property, because it's an action that you are doing to the table view. Whereas here we are looking at a property. It is better practice to do this. And also, this function lets us say whether that will be animated or not. Let's see what that looks like. So we can do additional stuff when we set editing. I'm going to say when we change from editing to not editing mode, it's not going to be animated. But when we change from not editing to editing mode, it is going to be animated. And let's see what those things look like. This is a bit of additional functionality. So that slides in. If you look very slowly, I think there's a way I can slow it down, but when I go from not editing to editing, you see it slides in with this nice animation on the left side. When I go from editing to not editing, it just kind of pops to the other side. So if I changed animated to be true when I go from editing to not editing, I'll see that it edits in a different way. Whoa, 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 whoa. Cool. That animation is built in for you, which is pretty cool. It's built into a table view. Maybe a table view has something to do with animation in its definition.
David, where did you switch the rules when you changed that?
Set editing, the first argument it takes is what you want to set the value to. Yeah, let's do that. Set editing. Editing and then animated. So if it is editing, I'm setting editing to false, and I'll say that's animated. I want to go look at the definition of a table view. Maybe it's got some stuff about its animations. Table view.row animation. Whoa, there's a whole type just for that. Whoa, what is that? It's an enum. There are all these different types of row animations. I can have a fade animation. I can have a right animation, a left, the top, bottom. None. Ew. Middle and automatic. Great. So that is a specific type of animation to a UI table view. Very interesting. There's an enum in the definition of a UI table view. They extended UI table view to have something called a row animation. Neato. I really think it's cool. Okay.
Like not fade instead of not.
Yeah, we could do that. Well, I would have to adjust how set editing works because it doesn't take an argument here for the type of animation. It takes an argument for whether or not it's animated. So I need to figure out a way to say what's the default animation for when I set editing. So should we go to my friend or do you want to look at that on your own? Okay, let's time block this. We will put 90 seconds to learn what we can and then go back to the lesson. I would encourage you to do this for yourself. If you don't know what something is, literally set a timer for how long you want to look at it before you say, okay, I'll figure this out another time. So let's say for a table view, how to change animation type. Animate table view updates. All right, let's check the first one. I don't really know any of these sources, so let's try to learn a better way to reload data. To be honest, this .reload data is only there for 2 reasons. Okay, I don't think this is what we're looking for, so I'm gonna go find something else. I appreciate that person like declaring their purpose in the first sentence. Animating table view cells display. In this article, you will learn how to boost user experience of your app by adding custom display animations for table view cells. This looks good. Problem statement. Animations are among the key factors that distinguish between the regular and outstanding user experience. I'd venture to guess that you're using at least one table view in your current project. Taking into account that table views are so widely adopted in iOS apps, developing eye-catching cells, loading animation can significantly boost your app's user experience. 3, 2, 1. Nice. All right, that looks like a pretty good article. I'll drop it into Slack. Neato. All right. What? Oh yeah, absolutely. This is a dictatorship. Just remember that. Okay, so the really nice thing is, this is all we need for our views right now. This is all we have to do for our views. Now the hard part is we want to tie our data from our model to the controller so the controller can update the view. If you remember yesterday, we did something similar to this. We didn't just directly draw the information that we're going to have in the table view from our model. So the shopping cart, shopping item fetching client.get shopping items. We don't just assign that to a variable or a constant, but instead we have this variable here, shopping list, that we initially load that information into. Think of this shopping list as right now a copy of that information. But we are going to be making changes to that copy. That's why this isn't just saved as some kind of let property that we never change. We want this specific copy of all that shopping item, fetching client shopping items, so these guys. We want all of those initially to load, and then we want to change up whether they are even in the array that we're looking at in our controller. So this shopping items array. We want to look at if we can change the order. We want to see maybe if we can add one, maybe later on. Sunny.
When we're creating our own models, is it better practice to have a class and all of, and like an array of all of the elements that we want, or have it call to a function like this? And then return the same thing?
I would say have a function because we're going to see, think of this as pretty much strictly a unit 2 setup because next season, we are going to begin to get this information from a remote location. So we're going to want to have a function that says get shopping items, and its job is going to be to look at that remote location rather than just return this array. So the better practice is to use a function because you're actually going to be performing some action. So right now the get describes just getting this array, but this array could have been somewhere else. This information could have been somewhere else. So do it like this for now, and it will make more sense in a week and a half, is what I would say. Okay. I should probably update my pairing to do that. Because this is all the stuff I haven't done in my pairing. I'm going to make an algorithm, update, thing, for, remote, fetch. Okay. What should we do now? I know, but what should we do now? We've done some work for a while. Thank you. Let's commit our changes. I've got all these changes. If I check out my git diff, well, I added a navigation item with a bar button that's on the right side. That has a button inside of it. All this stuff is going on. Great. Then I added this edit button. What would be a good message for our commit, Michelle? What? Adds edit button. Cool. So I'm going to git add minus P. So that adds the storyboard stuff. This will add the view controller stuff. Sounds good to me. I'm going to say adds edit button for table view, just to be a little more descriptive. I also, let's check my remote real quick. So my remote is the actual repo. I forgot to fork it. My bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to a new branch so that I'm not on master. I'll call it David's branch again. So that when I push it up, git push origin David's branch. What? So when I go to my remote, this isn't even my friend Google, this is my even better friend GitHub. So now when I go to the website for this lesson, right now I'm on the master branch, so I only see the one commit for that branch. But if I click on branches, I can see my branch, which was updated 1 minute ago when I just pushed that up. Now if I click on it, I get that same view as before, but it shows my commits. I can also toggle that here, where I see branch. So I'm doing work simultaneous to Ben doing the work as well. I could create a pull request to merge that code in. I'm not going to do that, but that's where that stuff went, if you're looking for it. It's not on master. Great. Let's go back. Let's look at some stuff. So my edit button right now just brings up a menu. Sorry, just brings up that left side animation. It doesn't get rid of this Apple thing when I hit delete. I want to set it up so that my model changes and then the view changes. So if I'm in editing mode and I hit delete, what I first want to do is change that underlying array, the copy of the model, and then have that update my table view. Any ideas? We need a delegate? That works. Yeah. Are you just reading through the lesson? What's the delegate method that lets us do that? Cool. Let's see. So if I go to my extension for my delegate and my data source, if I say table view, can edit row at index path, it asks the data source to verify that the given row is editable. What do you all think? Is that what we're looking for? Are we trying to ask a question, or are we trying to tell it what to do? We're trying to tell it what to do. So maybe it's a little different. Let's keep looking. It's a little different? Okay. What do you think it's called? Editing. Okay. Editing. Asks the data source to commit the insertion or deletion of a specified row in the receiver. Ask the delegate for the editing style. No. Yeah. We're trying to figure out, there's got to be a delegate method, because there's got to be a delegate method for my table view that responds to me clicking delete. Because if that's built in, it must be available in the code somewhere. So I'm just looking through the methods because it's Friday and I want to keep you annoyed into the weekend.
But this looks like this would be correct.
Okay, let's see what this does. I can hold the little thingy. Oh no, there's no stuff. What if I click commit? Declaration. There's no information. What about this? There's no information. What about this? What do you think deselect means? Cool. So deselect means when I've gone from is selected on a row to deselected. If you remember, there's an is selected in our table view as well. That's going to be a little different from is editing. So in our is editing, let's just say we're going to change it this way. Let's take a look at the editing style. Table view cell has an editing style. What do you all think this is defined as, Carrie? You ready for me to hit enter? It's an enum. So editing style is an enum where you can have none, you can have delete, or you can have insert. Sounds pretty cool. What do you think delete is supposed to do, Sam? Delete what? Nice. What do you think insert is supposed to do, Jocelyn? Sounds great. But I just want to caution you again, this is just our view. Those don't actually do the work of deleting or inserting for us. They're just what the UI looks like. They're just saying, when you're editing, this red button means delete. Now we've got to use this delegate method. So let's say, let's switch based on editing style, because there are only 3 options for what it can be. The one we see right now is delete. So let's say a case for .delete. So UI table view cell .editing style delete. For this one, let's just print, we hit delete. Then I'll say for default case, I don't think we have any other editing styles available to us right now. We'll print, we did something else. Sunny? So the enum has 3 cases. That's great. But this is just a view. Also, I should put this in here. Again, our that's just an enum on the view. And so literally the only one I see right now is the delete. There's also an insert one and there's also none, but the one I can trigger right now just interacting with the UI is only delete.
And so the function that we use, which is edit button, that only allows us to use the delete case for that.
So it actually does something even simpler. All it does is set whether we're editing. And when we set editing, it brings up the editing options. So these editing styles will pop up. Right now, the only one that pops up is delete. But set editing just reacts to you setting it and presents to you the available editing styles. So now the available editing style we see is delete.
Why is that if there are other options?
There are other options, and we can add them in a bit.
So Apple just decided for editing, the only one they'll show you at first is delete.
Cool. So now I'm going to run it. Let's take a look at our prints. Let's see. Again, a lot of the time, the big issue with our delegate functions is figuring out when they get triggered. So the biggest thing I want to know right now is this the right delegate function? And then does it respond to me pressing delete in that table view? So if I hit edit and tap around, nothing happens, excuse me, because there are no other things for any editing style. When I hit delete, I get a printout saying we hit delete. So it wasn't this negative, it wasn't this minus sign, but instead it was actually hitting the delete button that triggers this function. So the minus sign itself doesn't do the job of deleting. We actually have to hit delete. It's kind of like a double check, right? If someone could just tap around and delete things at will, it's like they lost a whole bunch of information that they might have wanted, and accidentally it just went away. So delete doesn't get triggered until you actually hit delete. Are there any questions? All right. So our UI is now telling our controller, A, that it's in editing mode, and B, that you've hit delete. Now when we hit delete, we want to change the copy of our model that we have in the controller. So the copy of our model is this shopping list. And that shopping list initially has, when we get shopping data, it initially has all of these shopping items that we defined in that model function, get shopping items. So it's got 6 things. And that is initially what we see in the UI. Great. I want this delete. Well, let me ask you. Angela, what should this delete do? High level. Without thinking about the code, what should it do? What should its job be? Yeah, it should delete a row. So when I hit delete, I should expect for Apple to go away. What do you think we should do? Let's say I want to update the model first to make sure the data is right, and then update the view. Okay. I'm going to pass it to Tia. Tia? Okay, so shopping items. I'm sorry, shopping list. How do you want to modify it? Yeah. So the array is these 6 things.
Where we have the, sorry, I think about like how I had the glitch with the even error that I had. It was that it wasn't returning the first piece, so it just wasn't reading that. So we need to look at what role was selected and then not return that information anymore, or you would have to tell it that we're creating a new array with an edit list that everything's up.
Cool. So let's say with this shopping list, which is defined up at the top, it's a variable, so we can just change that array right here. So how could I figure out what in the array to remove? Let me tell you, you can remove at. So which row was selected if you had to figure out how that works? Okay, index path, which is of type index path, but there's a property on it. I'm going to pass to Michelle. Index path dot row. So this is saying remove from our data whatever is at the particular row that we tapped on. So if you remember again, in our data source functions, we set it up so there are as many rows in the view as there are things in the model. So each index path.row corresponds to the exact same place in our shopping list. So the first row, you can think of that as index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, 4, and 5. So if we remove the thing at index path.row, we're removing it at the associated index in our model. Cool. Let's see what happens when we do this. So Michelle just told me nothing happens. I'm going to delete. It won't go away. It's really a pain in the butt. Oh no. I get a fatal error, index out of range. Because I tried to delete a row. I tried to delete something from our model at an index that no longer existed. Because I already deleted a whole bunch of stuff. So it's just like an array. I deleted 4 things. I hit delete 4 times. Deleted 4 things. The size of that array now became 2. And I tried to delete the 3rd thing. And so I crashed the app because I haven't updated the UI to properly associate with what the actual model data is. What's that? We could reload the data, but there's an even easier way to do it. But first, Sunny, question? Sunny, guidance?
Well, I know this because I had thought that it would reload our shopping list is the array that's being updated.
Mm-hmm.
So I had thought that it would automatically do that in the data or like in the UI because when you look at the counts and the function that we had for self and row at,
Mm-hmm.
that's the variable that we used.
Yeah, but what we didn't do is we never said, again, reload the data in the table view. So if you remember yesterday, whenever that search string was changed, we reloaded the data. We haven't set that anywhere here. And that's because there's actually going to be an even easier way to add and remove cells from a table view. Yesterday, we were updating all the information across the table view, which is why we would reload it. Today, there are, I don't want to do this. Is it called table view? I forgot. Table view, shopping list table view. Shopping list table view dot delete rows at, and here it's saying which rows. Right now we're only hitting delete for one row, so I'm just going to make an array of index path, an array that is index path, and we saw before there's a UI table view.row animation. So built into this function delete rows is an animation for how it handles you deleting the row. So shopping list removes it from the data, and then, shopping list.remove removes that thing from the data, and then shopping list table view.delete rows removes it from the view. That's what the controller is doing. And so I say at index path because I'm only deleting one, but potentially in the future could figure out a way to delete multiple if I really wanted. And then I give a row animation. So I can just hit dot and see all the row animations. Which one do you want to use, Ian? What's your favorite? What's it going to be? The wheel's still spinning. Just pick one. Fade. Okay, let's do fade. Let's see how this works. Are you ready? It's going to be disappointing. Thanks so much. Cool. So I go into I set editing to true. I hit the thingy. Now I hit delete. Whoa. It got rid of it. And now our UI has 5 elements in it, and our model has 5 elements in it. Super important. I'm going to put in a breakpoint right here so we can see what happens right after I delete this last one. Nice. I'm going to print out shopping list, table view, dot. Let's see if I can find the number of rows. Number of rows in section 0. There's 1 row left. Cool, so it's deleting that. This delete is triggered. There's going to be 1 row left. And then if I print out shopping list dot count, so that's our model, I see there's 1 item in there. So each time we hit delete, we are removing 1 thing from the model and from the view. Sunny.
Similar to my last question, but yesterday when we updated the search bar, it was by inputting or removing a character, but that automatically changed the user, the view of the array. How is that different from here? We didn't have to, we can't use, say, delete a row or input a row. Why do we get to
Because yesterday we wanted it to be able to grow and get smaller, like based on literally the text that we had. So we wanted to keep around all the data. That's why we had that like static. Guys, can you bring it up here? We had that like static reference to all the data, and then we didn't actually delete anything from there. We just filtered it. Here we want to actually remove it or potentially add to it or do whatever stuff because that's exactly how this table view should work. So especially like to your question about looking at the model, where is that model? There you are. No, we were in it. Especially to your question about looking in the model, like you might be updating information at a remote location, and so actually changing the information, and you want that to be reflected here and in the model that you're using in your controller. So like it keeps all the data. These are actual insertions and deletions. You actually want that data gone, as opposed to yesterday, you just wanted to look through it. So we are deleting stuff here to make sure that it's gone and like not reusable. Whereas yesterday we were reloading it to like get back to a previous filter. Yeah.
So it wasn't automatically doing it. If you remember, a variable had a did set, and in that did set, it was rebuilt data. So whenever you change that variable, it like automatically did it, but it would kind of put it to automatically do it. The rebuilt data is talking about the original instance that we're not changing. I'm talking about the new variable that has a filter function. So that array is still changing. It's still growing, or you're still removing
Yeah.
things, but in that specific array, you weren't reloading anything.
Right. So yesterday, the information we were using was actually a computed property, right? So it actually had no state. It didn't save any information, right? And so the reason we did that is because we wanted to be able to reset what these data source functions were looking at based on an original set of data that doesn't change, but filtering through it each time we got new search information. So we didn't want that original set of data to change at all. We wanted to be able to eventually refer back to it. This is a much more potentially dangerous thing where we are actually changing the data because we no longer want it there. Like if you're using an app and you delete something, it's because you want it gone, right?
My question is more about the view. So here we're explicitly saying delete the view delete the row in the view. We had done that yesterday. It's explicitly saying delete this row in the view.
Right. Because here we're doing updates to the model, whereas yesterday we were just looking through the model. Like that was the filter. Here the update is literally get rid of that thing in the model and make sure it's updated in my view. I want that thing gone. Yeah. What? Print the variable?
Can you make it print the second line so we can see what happens?
This guy? Here?
So after showcase value,
Yes.
can you print the array?
Print the
without
shopping
set-
list array?
Without 975 so we can see what happens.
Yeah. So when I remove this, it hasn't yet updated the UI. It's about to do that. No, go away, preview. When I print out shopping list, I'll see that it is something that has 5 items in it, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 index. And so I have removed from there, and great question, it's about to remove it in the user interface. It'll update once I tell it to get past this breakpoint, and now it's gone. Adam, you had a question. Okay. What are some more questions you have about this MVC setup? The whole deletion thing is like, well, it's gone forever now. Yeah, this is like if you had a shopping list. Like, this is like if you had a shopping list, and then you hit delete, it's like, okay, I got that thing. I don't need to worry about it. That's the purpose here. There's probably a safer way to make sure that data is contained somewhere. But
I thought you were deleting the elements in the instance of the array.
yeah,
So not in the actual model.
Right, because the model itself right now is just some static data.
Right.
Our models, like, and the remote locations we get them from, will eventually update, but it's just, we just said, here are the 6 things. That's not going to be adjusted right now. Albert? What's that? Sorry. Yeah, you could set that up. You could set up some kind of maybe property observer. You could set up an observer here that says when my count is like did set, right? Change the value. If my count is 0, do this to the button. That's how you can control for that too. Thank you. It's going to need that. Where's some more questions you have? Hey. You tell me. So if I close the app and then I reload it, in our current setup, yeah, but typically in an app, like when you actually delete it, it goes to like a server somewhere and deletes it. And so that's what this get shopping data is simulating, but our delete never actually, I think this is related to what Sunny was asking, our delete for the shopping data doesn't actually adjust this because it's just right now for reference. Like this is like an educational tool. This is not actually a way for us to keep track of information. Do we love it? Sunny.
Question about organizing code. Right now, it feels like there's a lot of stuff related to something scattered all throughout the controller. Is there a better way to approach that?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, all of what you should have in your view controller before the extension is any properties and any lifecycle stuff. So view did load. View did load itself has some private functions, so that should all stay in there. And then as much as we can, we should try to break these out. So we could even do data source and delegate separately. But yeah, your controllers are going to start to get more and more complex. Like, that's true. Those are in the extension just because it's easier to read that initially, so the first part that I know about my shopping list view controller is that it is a subclass of UI view controller. And then instead of having all of the code for the delegates in this same block here, it'll be easier for me to read to potentially here set a mark that says table view, data source, and then I could move this out, create another extension, it's called shopping list view controller, uses the delegate, then I could put a mark here saying table view delegate. And it's just going to make it much easier to read, to refine, to refactor. Because if I know, for example, that...
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
But why is the... slow down, going down, keep going, keep going. Okay, so normally in the future though, we do the table delegate equals self in there. Why is it done right there?
You tell me.
Private function configured to
Why do you think you would do it like this?
I don't know.
You're separating out the responsibility. So the view did load doesn't have to know anything about this stuff. And it's not responsible for it, it just calls another function. This get shopping data only does one line of code, right? But it does something specific that other things can now go use. Even this, like, shouldn't be there, like Albert said. I got rid of it, okay? Are you happy?
Try to take it off though. Not even false integrity here. That was like that. Call it false. Oh no, as soon as you call it it's false, and then okay.
Cool. Let's take a break. After the break, we will learn a little more about this, but I think ultimately the big things to know are there's an editing mode for table views. We can pick up the action and the type of action in editing mode with this delegate function. And now we just need to sort out in our view controller what happens to the model and the view when I do different types of editing. So we did the delete, we've done all the setup. Now, after we get back, you're all going to figure out how to do other kinds of editing. It's really exciting. Let's take 6 minutes. I gotta run to the bathroom. Sorry. Hello.
Check out how short my code is for Game of Thrones
Oh
now.
my god. Oh my god.
All the switch
What did you
statements.
refactor in the was it the title for header?
So title for header again. I also did that for pushing. It's like to push the element to the top.
You see how refactoring your model helped you do all that?
Yeah. That is why I chose to schedule office hours to talk about exactly that.
Awesome. I'm very happy to hear that. Okay, let's get started again. Yay! Hooray! Let's do the most important part of coding. Malcolm, what didn't I do? What didn't I do? All right, let's make some commits. Let's check my git status. Cool. Let's check my git diff. I added some marks. I added a delete button. Nice. I'm going to git add -p to add that in parts. All right, I got rid of that thing, which was good. All I did here was separate my data source and my delegate, which I'll see below, and that's fine with me. And then here I added that delete button. Phoenix, what would be a good commit message for what I just did? Check out the green text. Cool. Created delete, I'll say functionality for table view. Boom. Nice. Got these things. Next week I'm going to show, no, 2 weeks I guess. I'm going to tell you about git ignore, which is a way that you can get git to ignore certain types of files. It'll be really helpful when you've just got these weird things popping up that you don't recall editing ever. Have you ever been in an editing table views.xcode proj/proj.xc workspace/xc user data? Has anyone ever been in that file? Apparently you have, right? It's something that's going on behind the scenes. You don't actually edit it, but it's trying to keep track of what you've been doing in Xcode's editor. And we don't really, who cares? Is that code that you want to commit? It's not code that you wrote, so who cares? We're going to learn how you can ignore that stuff. For now, do not ignore me. Nice, good transition. Because we're going to learn how to add new things. We're going to make an unwind segue. Are you ready? Let's add to our storyboard something that will add a new segue. I'm sorry. Yep, let's add a new segue. What does a segue go between? Goes between view controllers. Neato. So we need a new view controller. I'm going to just add a view controller here. I don't really know much about it. Alex, what should go in our view controller? Label. What's this label going to do? Cool. So this view controller is going to be how we add new information. Cool. So let's do the atom thing where we like, how do I do it? No. Thank you. The atom thing. Thank you, Adam. I'm going to make a title label here that says add new item. New item. I'm going to make a label here that says name. I'm going to make a label here that says price. Nice. I'm going to add 2 text fields. So I've got one here. Can do the atom thing. I'm going to make it a little bigger. I'm also going to give it a border so that we can see where it is. Now it looks like an input bar, huh? So the border is in the attributes inspector right over here. Looks like I just gave it a square border. There's probably a way I can make that prettier. Oh man. How about this? Nice. Create 2 buttons. What are those buttons going to do? One button will say submit, and one button will say cancel. If anyone's ever used an app before. Okay. Very good point. Allison, if you hypothetically had ever used an app, which of these buttons would you make submit and which would you make cancel? What seems like the convention you've seen a million times? So usually the submit is on the right side. Typically, like, positive actions are near your right thumb and negative actions are near your left thumb. UI tip. Keep that in mind. Right thumb is yes, left thumb is no. That. Right is right, left is wrong. So I'm going to make this left side. Yes. Yep. Yeah. You're talking about the navigation? Yeah. I'm just setting it up here so that I can, well, I never actually anticipated using a navigation controller. That was just a little bit of flourish that the people who created this code added to it. Their names are Ram and Olympia. But my intent is for this cancel to do the same thing as pressing a back button. So, yeah, sorry. I'm also gonna, let's say, make the text in this white and make the background of it red. Again, I really don't like making things pretty. I'm really sorry about that. But at least this seems somewhat intuitive that cancel would be red, and then submit might be green. Woof. Not great, but, you know, seems intuitive. All right, so we've got a new view controller. How should we get to it? How should we get to our new view controller? A segue, great. A segue from our shopping list. I think that would make a lot of sense. I don't want to tap a cell here to segue, because the purpose of this new view controller is to add an item. So I don't want to tap a cell. I also don't want to tap this button, because the purpose of this button is to edit. So what might be a better option? Jason. make another button. Cool. So I am going to move this. Oh, I'm moving the edit button to the left side, and I'm gonna add in a new button to the right side for the same reason I did with cancel and with submit in the other view controller. Our left button does like less positive things, our right button does more positive things. I wish I had a better explanation for that. I'm sure I can come up with one, but I think it's also what we as users are kind of accustomed to. Yeah, hang on, let me just name this. I'm gonna name this add. And so I've moved the edit button to the top left from the top right. Now I'm adding an add button. And the add button, I'm gonna make segue to our new view controller. When I make segues and I make constraints, I usually just do it from the document outline because I hate fishing around in the storyboard. I would recommend that if like things are not connecting how you think they should when you do your little control drag. So from the add to the new view controller, I'm gonna make a present modally. Let me show you what that does. So now edit is on the left side. Even though I changed its location, it's still hooked up to the same IB action, so that's all right. Now when I hit add, it's going to present modally this guy, which doesn't have the navigation controller. So what we'll need to do is set up a way for this cancel to unwind that segue. Did anyone successfully set up an unwind on Wednesday? Albert? Okay, hold on. Let me just. Anyone? Not Wednesday. Okay. Cool. We'll go into it in a little more depth now then. Albert. Let's look at that. Maybe you can describe to me what you mean.
Edit and then keep the add button here, but
Yeah. Yes, that would also be a really good UI thing to do. When I hit edit, maybe disable and hide this button. Or call it delete. Here. This guy? That's true. Agreed. Yeah, what I'm gonna, I guess, this afternoon show you, yeah, is how you can reorder them using the edit as well. That's that little like 3-dot tab that you often see. See how you've been using apps and learning all these things about iOS development as long as you've had phones? But yes, good suggestion. We could hide the add button when I've hit edit so that I don't do multiple things at once. That would be a great user experience decision. All right, we've got a segue between our two view controllers. Also, I didn't set up any constraints in here, A, because I'm lazy, but B, because it's not a dynamic view at all. It's just gonna load this every time. Might look ugly on different screens, but again, this is an educational tool, and that is the excuse I'm always gonna make when I do something lazily. Cool? All right, so here is our add button. Our add button is what triggers this segue here. We need to give a name to this segue. Crystal, what do you want to call this segue? Cool. Let's call it the add item segue. It's great. All right. Now, I'm going to, if you remember from the other day, there's a really janky way that we have to create an unwind segue. First, we actually have to say in the view controller that there's going to be an IB action. So I say there's an IB action. That's a func called unwind segue, which is a UI storyboard segue, and then this does some stuff. We need this to tell the storyboard that it's going to have the interface builder action ability to unwind. Does anyone remember what we do next? So let me just, I typed that quickly, let me just show you again. We've got a thing called IB action func unwind segue UI storyboard segue. It doesn't have to be called unwind. That's just what I'm calling the function. It's not a keyword. But it needs to be an IB action so that interface builder picks it up and knows that, hey, in the view controller somewhere, I can link to a function. Oh, that thing is called unwind, and it takes as an argument a UI storyboard segue. So we're kind of working in reverse from what we're used to in interface builder. Doesn't have to be called unwind. I'm just noting that a million times. But since I have started to define an IB action function here, interface builder can look at its class, the view controller and interface builder can look at its class and see, oh, there's an action there that I could use as well. So we've set up the beginning of a function. Now for our new button, button, type. You notice the types for these buttons are a little different. So just like we saw cells can have multiple types, including a custom type, we can change the type of our buttons as well. I'm going to use this add contact type. Whoa, it's just the plus button. It's magic. What do you notice it doesn't say anymore? It doesn't say add. But if you were using this app, would you know what it does? Cool. So that's still our add button. That's great. Also, you can, in a navigation bar, pull in a label to the middle to make a title, to make it a little more intuitive if you really wanted to, just like I've dropped in buttons on the left and right side. So as you're making apps, start to think about how people will use them and how you can make it more intuitive for people to use them. So we've got our plus button. I'm not going to run it because you know what it does already. It segues to this new guy. Great. What I want to do is I want to have our submit button this guy up here is the exit icon. You okay? Exit says, how am I getting out of here? And what's going to happen when I get out of here? And so we've defined in the view controller that this view controller came from, or another way of saying it might be the segue's source and the segue's destination. In the destination, I am able to access this unwind with segue function from the source. So the segue got triggered by the source of the segue, right? We press the button here to bring up a new view controller. I can now say, hey, when I'm exiting this view controller, this destination view controller, well, I already know how I got here. So when I'm exiting, I can just unwind that segue. Now if I right-click on the view controller over here, I'll see that it has present modally, and then I'll also see at the bottom there's an unwind. So in this second view controller, I should see an unwind, and when I click on it, it highlights what I'm unwinding to. So it's literally just updating, it's literally just going in the opposite direction of that segue. So first, this segue from our shopping list to this detail view controller gets us this add new item page. When I hit submit, so this button here, it unwinds that segue back to the view controller that I came from. What was the really important thing that we learned about, I'd say in the last few days, about this source view controller? When we go to the destination, what happens to the source, Michelle? What's that? It's on the bottom. And so if I unwind, what should I expect in this shopping list view controller? I should expect that. And by that, we mean that same instance of that view controller. So if I change some information in this view controller, so if I, what? Okay. If I edit it and I remove one of these items, even though when I initially get a shopping item, there are 6 of them, when I unwind back to it, it's the same instance of that view controller. So if I have gotten rid of one or multiple items, those changes are still here. I'm not loading a new view controller and getting those same 6 items from the beginning. All the changes that I did here still exist. And the whole point of this add item is when I unwind, I want to say at the place where I'm unwinding, we can add a row. We can add information to the model here, to that same instance of the shopping list. Are you all ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. Albert, I can't hear you at all. Sorry. This guy?
Yeah.
Is it a button? Try dragging it from the button to the exit. Do you have the segue? Okay. I'm going to ask you to enlist someone's help. So I want to keep going. All right. Let's create the class for this second view controller. So Tia, how can I create a new class that's going to correspond to this view controller? I don't have it yet, so let's do it. What type of file should I use? Cool. I'm going to call this add item view controller. Is that cool? All right. I'm going to add this in the same place that I see all this stuff. I've defied Malcolm. I should have committed my work by now. I'm really sorry, Malcolm. Let's go back and commit. Check my status. Git add editing table views dot xcode project. Git add editing table views / add item table view controller. I am saving the project structure and the new file that I created. That's all I'm doing in here. Add item view controller file. Now, if I look in my storyboard, I'm also going to see some changes. I'm going to see that I moved those buttons, and I'm going to see that I created a new view controller as well. So I'm going to git add, oh, sorry. I confused myself. Git commit those previous changes. Sorry. Git commit -m. That was that stuff before. Now I'm going to git add -p. The stuff in the storyboard and this unwind segue thing. The commit message here could be something like add segue from item list to add item updates nav bar buttons. Great. In here, we want this to do some stuff. But first, let's update the class of this view controller. Let's make it an add item view controller. And actually, I want that in my last commit. So I'm going to git add -p. I'll see that it updated the custom class in my storyboard of this view controller which is called add item view controller now. I'll hit Y, it does that. What's the command to go back to the last commit and add this thing, Ayula? What's the verb you would say we're doing to that commit? I'm changing it. I am doing something that they did to the Constitution a few times. Cool. So I am git commit amend. Cool. So I've got all those changes. That's great. Now, I want to go to here. I want to say, let's see. I want to go here. I want to say, I'm forgetting what I want to do. Give me just a sec. Here's an image. Let's check out this image on the internet. Oh, I want to do this. Let's zoom in. I want to draw a line from my view controller, the first view controller, to the exit sign. Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to do that. I want to draw a line from here to there. Oh, manual segue, unwind with segue. I had to do that twice. What does that do? Unwind segue to unwind with segue. It unwinds to itself. What is going on there? Let's learn a little more. I don't know. Let's see what unwind with segue means. Do you guys want to see my friend, or do you want me to keep going? You want to see my friend? That's so nice. Let's see how unwind with segue works. Unwind with the twist. There are all these cool things. An unwind segue is a segue that allows a user to navigate back from their current view to a previous view. Imagine I have two view controllers. And view controller 1 segues to view controller 2. The user creates or edits data in view controller 2, and I want to send this data back to view controller 1. Nice. Oh, if I put a plus button in the first view controller's navigation bar, it'll segue to the next one. This sounds like what we're doing. Let's keep reading. Nice. They can enter their favorite character's name into a text field and push a save button. Nice. When I unwind from add there, I want to be able to pass this character with the unwind segue, so that's added to the array. From my first view controller, I control dragged from the plus to that second view controller. Nice. That's the segue we created to get from our list to our add item. Then, in our second thing, I have a stored property called character. Let's just see if we can adapt this code. So in our add item view controller, they had a character. I'm going to add an item. Let's see. That thing could be of type shopping item. Shopping item. If I add the bang, I don't need to have an initializer. If I do not have the bang, I need to have an initializer. So that's why we add the bang there. I'm going to say when our view loads, item is equal to shopping item. Let's see what happens here. It's going to fail because there's a missing parameter name in call. Interesting. How can I do this in a better way? Anyone have any advice? Well, I want to talk about how we're going to set up this model. Maybe let's go see what this person said to do. So they said they're going to use a string, and they're just going to look at the text field. That actually makes sense to me because this add item view controller doesn't need to know that it's creating a thing called an item. It just needs to know that it's getting some input and sending it to whatever it unwinds to. So let's make some outlets from our storyboard. In the text fields, I'm going to make some outlets, and then we could use their delegate methods, hooray, to get. No, stop it. I'm going to create an outlet from the top one, which is name text field. I'm going to create an outlet from the second one, which is, what do you want to call it, Sam? From this guy. Sounds good. Text field. Great. That's all I want to do is I want to have this information to be able to send it back to the source so that it can create a new item and add it to itself. Let's see if we can learn more stuff from this. Prepare for segue. So it says it should prepare for a segue. If it lets that equal that, do that. Okay. So let's have some properties called price, which is a string. And let's have a property called name, which is a string. Let's go back and make sure that we can use that information. Yes?
I'm trying to make an outlet for my text field. The only option I have is that it's an exit outlet. Or an exit action.
From the text field to the class is the class of that view controller the custom class you've created in Interface Builder? Cool. So I said that name and price that I get from my labels are both going to be strings. Should I account for anything with those strings, Marielle?
Isn't price a double?
Price is a double. So I'm going to need to do some checking in that add item view controller to make sure that whatever I get in price text field as its text can be used as a double. So I might have some error checking here where I say in my prepare for segue, prepare for segue. This segue is going to be that unwind segue. But I might say let name equal, let name, nope, name is equal to name text field dot text. That's an optional though. So I need to say maybe guard text from name is equal to that, else we could present an alert, or I could trigger a fatal error, crash it right now. So I'm guarding that. I can unwrap the text value, which is an optional string, in that name text field. Otherwise, I might put an alert, I might handle that error in a different way. Right now I'm just going to trigger a fatal error. Also going to guard that, should be a guardlet text from price equal price text field dot text, else let's do this all in one line. Trigger a fatal error. That would be so sad. I'm lastly going to guard let price as double equal. What happens when I try to initialize a double using the text from price? Else, crash the app again. Cool. Let's see what this error is. It's gone away. All right, these are all of my guard statements. I am checking that there's text in both text fields, so I'm validating the text fields to make sure that there's something in them. And then I'm also validating that from the price text field, whatever that thing is can be made into a double. Because when I convert a string when I convert a string into a double, I get an optional double. Because it doesn't always know that it can turn a string into a double. I can't turn the letters AA into a double. So this is the fun, wonderful process of error checking your user experience. This is where, when we talk about edge cases, the really important crap comes in. Because if the app works the wrong way, no one's going to use your app. What's the point of making it? Do you want to make this thing work now? Okay. So, let's see. I'm getting tired. Okay. I think I want to move this code, and I'm really sorry. Doesn't matter though, because ultimately they're analogous. I want to move this code into my unwind. I don't want it in here. I'm so sorry. I am. I told you I'm sorry. I'm going to move that code into my unwind. And I'm going to comment this stuff out for right now. And what I'm going to say is, now that I go to my storyboard, the unwind, where are you at? If you remember before, our segue from the list to that add new item controller had a source that was the shopping list and a destination that was the add new item. For this unwind, which one is the source? Which one are we starting at? Jocelyn. This view controller is going to submit something when it hits submit and go back to the shopping list. Which of those is the source? Yeah. So we have a segue here that goes from shopping list to add item. One of those is the source and one of those is the destination. When I hit submit, I want to unwind that segue, and I'm going to reverse which one is source and which one is destination. Can you tell me for that unwind which one is source and which one is destination? Great. So it might be easiest to just start with destination. Where are you going? We're going back to the table view. Add new item is the source of this segue, getting us back to the table view. Neato. So if that's the case, then in this unwind, I could just say guard to let, basically we're going to say here, create or suppose the source is an add item view controller. Levi, how can I translate that into code?
I don't know.
Okay. You should be on your guard about this. So how would you do that? Cool. What do you want to guard? Cool. So guard let, what do you want to call it? Sure. You do you, I'll do me. All right. So I'm going to tell you here that it has no clue what this is. But what we want to say is, suppose the source is an add item view controller. So guard let add item view controller equal what, Allison? Okay, let's start with segue. What about segue? So where are we going from and where are we going? No, we are in the destination, the shopping list. So suppose the source is an add item view controller, we would say, if this thing can be declared by looking at the source of the segue and trying to downcast it into an add item view controller, then I'll use that. If I can't trigger a fatal error. Cool. Now I want to take these items from that add item VC. So I'm just going to refactor what I did wrong in the other one. Say let text name equal add item VC. Come on, you can do it. Dot name text field dot text. And let text from price equal price dot text field dot text. Let's get rid of this little commenty thing. If that stuff works, then I want to create a new item. This is a shopping item. Taking as the arguments, what do I need for a shopping item? Sorry, shopping item. Taking as the arguments name and price. Carrie, what would name and price be here? There are two variables that we have already. What's that? Cool. So price is going to be a double. Which variable that we've worked out somewhere in here should we use for price when we're creating this new shopping item? This guy? So text from price is going to be a string. Cool. So let's use price as double. And then, I didn't do that, right? And then B, what could I use for name? Cool, let's do that. Text from name. Great. And just to let you know, you could have all of these little guard thingies all in one thing. Especially since like the job of all of those guards is to make sure that you have the right kind of information in your inputs. Because this guard would probably trigger something saying like improper input. It would do the same thing for each of those. I would say do it like this if what you do when those values don't work out is the same. So if you present an alert to someone saying, hey, like maybe that name or maybe that price or maybe you inputted that price were wrong or incorrect, then you would probably present the same alert. If you needed to do a different thing, then you might do a different thing. All right, we've got a new item. The nice thing about our table view is it allows us to insert rows, just like it let us delete rows. Let's look at that. Shopping list table view dot insert rows at index path with animation. Okay, so we need to figure out the index path that we're going to add it in at. Right now we know that there are, when we load it, 6 items in there. But there could be 5, there could be 3, there could be 2. What I would suggest is we add it to the end of our list. How could we get the number of rows in our list, Marielle? So in the instance of the table view, the table view itself is shopping list table view.
Not the table. Create an instance of the data.
Yes, we're actually just referring back to the original instance. Shopping list dot count. Yeah. If the data matched what's in the UI. We should always be able to use this. Agreed? I would say slightly better practice. What's that? Yeah, so we want to add it at the last index. Let me show you. So, we could also look at the table view dot number of rows in a section, and we're only in the first section. This goes and it counts the number of rows in that section. It should always match count if we've done our data right, but to make sure there's no crashes, I would probably get the value from the table view itself. Like, theoretically and like mathematically, totally correct, but just to make sure like the UI is perfectly in sync with the model, I would look at the UI. So I'm going to say let last index equal that. Think of this like counting rows. This is the count of rows. And just like in an array, this last index is actually one more than the final index. So count is equal to one more than the last index in an array. This number of rows is equal to one more than the last row, or the location of the last row in our table. Do you want me to draw that? That's okay. Think of it like count. The last row here is row with the subscript 5, but count gives us 6. So this last index value I'm getting counts the number of rows, which is 6. I'm going to use that value now to say where I should enter this new item. I'm going to say this new item, first we got to do this really cool thing where we create an index path. Last index path equal a new index path. Let's see how you initialize an index path. Oh, there's a bunch of ways. One that's probably helpful for us is to use row and section. The row is last index. And the section is, how many sections do we have in this table, Alex? So I'm going to put 0, which means we have how many sections? Cool. So at last index path, I want to insert in our table view insert a row in the array. We're in lunch, I'm really sorry. Last index path with animation, I'll just go automatic right now. I'm going to get rid of it. What else do we see has not been updated? I've updated the view. Have I updated the model? So I haven't updated that array. If I am adding this row at the end of the table view, I'm going to say, what's it called? Shopping list. I'm going to append new item to shopping list to make sure that it is at the end. So I'm adding a row in my table view. And to make sure that this item in the model is in the same place, I am adding that item to the end of the shopping list as well. Let's see if this works at all. So good. I'm going to delete one of these. That still works. I'm going to hit plus. I'm going to type some stuff to Joe and 90.A. This, if I did it right, this should crash. Yeah. Triggered a fatal error right here. Now let's launch it again. Make sure it worked. Delete a couple of these. No fans allowed. What's an item that you want? Malcolm. What? Raspberry. How much do raspberries cost, Marielle? 6.10. Submit. Now I have a raspberry. Gross. Sorry. You could probably set up the text in your table view so that it formats your doubles to have 2 decimal points. You could do all that stuff. You do that stuff using all the Swift that we know already. Let me do Phoenix and then Sunny. Yes. I will always do that for you. Just for you, though. Sunny.
Can you remind us the purpose of dragging the initial view controller, dragging from the exit to the first button?
The exit.
So if you're clicking on the first, yep, the top, see the 3 buttons? Right above our view controller there.
Yeah.
Why did we drag from the exit to the yellow tab?
It's a really good question. Let's find out what happens when we don't have it. I'm not really good with this stuff, so let's find out together. Regular segue works. I say, give me some pop. $4.23. Oh, so we didn't need it. We just need the unwind, I guess. Or, do we need that? I think we need the other unwind, obviously, though. We do need the unwind from here, though.
Right.
From the
But
exit.
we don't need the one on the side.
Right. What that would have been doing was exiting this view controller.
So that second segment is added, which was missed.
Yes. Yeah. Great question. Really important. Also, I realized this video is super long. We actually did not need the unwind segue from the initial view controller. We only needed the unwind segue in that add item view controller. So from submit to its exit, we needed that so we could know how to get the hell out of there. So I added an unnecessary segue. The important and necessary segue is an unwind segue from submit to the exit. I don't know what you call this thingy, the icon. And that's saying what goes on, or sorry, this is saying get me out of this view controller. I also added one of those in the shopping list view controller from, I think, the button to the exit. That would have said, how do I get out of the shopping list view controller? But that's not what that button did. And there's nothing to unwind to out of this shopping list view controller. So I added it mistakenly, and we didn't need it, so I just deleted it. The only unwind is in the add new item view controller because that's the one that we need. And then just make sure you have this IB action for an unwind. Hooray.
Where is the IB action?
The IB action is in the list view controller, the table view. The controller with the table view, yeah.
Everything has like pretty much everything that you did, but it's not working.